This year's Rugby World Cup will be hosted in Japan for the first time ever. But how will Japan do in their own Rugby World Cup? Welcome to the preview of the Brave Blossoms, the Japanese national side. How are they going to do? This is my preview. Be sure to subscribe, leave a like on the video and comment your thoughts down below. Let's get into it. So historically at Rugby World Cups, Japan have struggled. In 1987, in the inaugural tournament in New Zealand, they lost all three of their pool matches. They played the United States, they played Australia, and they also played England. But it was a bit of a different story in 1991, where they were placed in a pool alongside Scotland and Ireland, who they'll face in this year's tournament, and also Zimbabwe. They lost fairly comfortably against the Irish and the Scottish, but managed to get a pretty convincing win against the Zimbabweans, 52 points to 8. Then heading into the rest of the tournaments, they did struggle all the way up until 2015, when they beat, of course, the Springboks in emphatic style down in Brighton with a last-minute try. What a day it was, possibly the biggest upset of any Rugby World Cup. I'm sure you remember it well. This tournament, Japan find themselves in Pool A. They play alongside Ireland, Scotland, Russia and Samoa. The way things are shaping up in these warm-up tests that they've had so far, which we'll get to in a minute, they look in decent form. So in preparation for Rugby World Cup 2019, Japan took part in the Pacific Nations Cup. They defeated Fiji and Tonga along the way to beating the United States in the final 34 points to 20, and this is possibly the best USA men's national side that we've ever seen before, and it's a fairly comfortable match, and Japan maybe should have won by even more. So going into the tournament, they're in fine form, but how will they do and how will we play? Let's have a look at the style of play that we can expect from this Japanese side. So what can we expect from Japan at this year's Rugby World Cup? Well, we have to remember they have been playing against a lot of weaker opposition, but their style of play tends to be that of attacking-minded play, with their scrum half Tanaka at the centre of everything good. They love to play with the ball in hand, passing the ball out and using their strong pack. They like to take players on and are confident to do this in their own ability. They have a consistent goal kicker in Rikiya Matsuda, who has an 89% success rate for Japan over the past 2 years. This Japanese side will entertain crowds and will be willing to have a go. Defensively, they are strong as well, able to put in a shift and take on bigger physically opposition. The only concern maybe for this side is the average age of the squad, which is at 28.19, which is in fact one of the oldest at this year's tournament. But there are many star players in this side to keep your eyes on, and Japan will certainly look to throw the ball about and have a go. They also have a very strong set piece with a 92% line-out success and an 88% scrum success. They will use this as a basis for all of their attacks and look to capitalise and throw the ball out to their quicker wingers and their star players. Japan will be an entertaining team to watch at Rugby World Cup 2019. So the draw for their group has been fairly kind. They come up against the Russians first of all. Now this is the first game of the tournament. It's not a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's all about Japan getting that first win under their belt. Imagine if they faced Ireland first and lost that, then there'd be no momentum and maybe the morale in the country would drop. You'd expect them to beat the Russians, who have only just managed to get through because of some dodgy things going on between that match in Romania and Spain. They then come up against Ireland, although who were pummeled by England a few weeks ago. You would expect them to be able to put in a performance against Japan. They then come up against Samoa. Now Samoa will really be a fair game between both sides, I think. Samoa probably the second strongest Pacific side behind Fiji, probably better than Tonga. Samoa, very, very physical, strong. Japan, a bit smaller, but likes to throw the ball about and play with quick hands, as we looked in the style of play. That will be the game really which will show where Japan are at. They then come up against Scotland. Now this is the game I believe they will have to target to get out of the group. You'd expect them to beat Russia and Samoa, probably not the Irish, but Scotland is the game where maybe, just maybe, they could pull off a shock and get out of this group. Scotland have not been in fine form recently. They got thrashed by France, although they did come back and beat Georgia. And their team, they've left some interesting players out. Scotland Rugby World Cup preview will be out on the channel, so you'll know a little bit more about that soon. But they've left some interesting players out. And Scotland maybe are not in the same form as we've seen them over the past couple of years where they throw the ball about. If Japan can build up momentum throughout this group and Scotland maybe are struggling a little bit for form, this could be Japan's best chance of getting out of the group. So who's their key player for them? Well, it's got to be none other than Michael Leach, who plays for the Sunwolves and is captain for the side. Plays at number 8 for them and is a fantastic leader, the top leader for them, and he is their inspiration. He in fact was the captain when Japan beat South Africa in Brighton. What a result that was. He has some fantastic stats. He's played in 100% of all the minutes that Japan have played this year. So he's a key player for them and essential to anything good that comes from them. As we've spoken, their set piece, their scrum, their line out, their driving maul is so strong, and he is at the centre of all those things. He has a 91 success tackle rate for Japan, which is up there with some of the best in the world, although these are probably against weaker opposition sides that you'd expect him to get high stats for. But he's going to be the key man for Japan. The head coach is Jamie Joseph, the former New Zealand flanker, who also has played for Japan. He has experience of coaching in New Zealand and also with the Sunwolves in Japan before getting the top job for the national side. So how will Japan do? What are my predictions? It's going to be a really tough group for them. It's not going to be easy. They come up against two world-class sides who are possibly could win the Rugby World Cup themselves if things go for them. Ireland, I can't see them getting a win against the Irish, but against Scotland, can they do it? I'd love to say they can. My heart says yes, they can beat the Scottish, but my head says no, and I have to go with what my head says. I think they're going to have some great results against Samoa and also against Russia, but coming up against Scotland, I think will be a little bit too much for them. So Japan to finish a third in their own Rugby World Cup, but will definitely create some incredible memories and grow the sport even more in Japan. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Am I crazy? Should I think that the Japanese can get through this group? Let me know in the comments down below your predictions for Japan and for this pool. And I will see you again in another preview here on BIS Rugby. Thank you very much for watching. Do subscribe. Peace.